Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WL new body, we're going to be showing you how to install the Curt 4-way flat trailer wiring. But before we get into that, let me just take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. When it comes to Jeeps, you know, people use these things to do a lot of different things, which does include pulling some trailers around. And so if that's what you plan on doing, you're going to need trailer wiring. That way all the lights on your trailer will work and not only be safe but legal too, because every state requires that your lights are going to work. That way people know what's going on. And that's where a wiring kit like this is going to come into play. So it's going to give you that the standard 4-way flat trailer connection there. And this is real typical of what a lot of types of trailers these Jeeps would be pulling, smaller and medium-sized ones, And it's going to give you all the basic signals. So you have your tail lights, your brake lights, as well as your turn signals. Other than that, though, not really a whole lot to this. Curt's came a long way with their wiring products. They're right on par with some of the other manufacturers in terms of the construction quality and everything else. So for me, no complaints there. With this setup too, the ends just plug into your tail light, so you don't have to splice into your factory wiring and go crazy there at all. So you really can't go wrong. In terms of installation, it's time consuming. I do highly recommend doing it at the same time that you're doing your trailer hitch, if that's your particular situation, because with all the hitches, you have to take this bumper off, and it's just so much easier to see and know what's going on, and that's how we did ours today. But keep in mind, if you're kind of late to the game there in terms of you got your hitch on already, and then you want wiring a little ways later, whatever the case is, you can still do this all put together. So regardless of what you're trying to go through, this can be done. A lot of people wonder about routing the wire because you have to run a power wire from the back to the front to your battery. And we'll show you how we did that and how we routed ours and things of that nature. So if you'd like to see how it's done, feel free to hang around. We'll go ahead and hook it up together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the back of our Jeep. And clearly I have our rear fascia and stuff taken apart, and that's because we're going to do the wiring the same time that we're doing the hitch. And that's what I suggest doing. If you already have a hitch on and you're just going to be doing wiring, this can be done, all right, with the fascia and everything on. I just wanted to show it like this because that's how I suggest doing it at the same time. And it's a lot easier to see, but all this information is still going to apply for those of you that are doing this at a later date or whatever the case may be. It's all going to be essentially the same. So this will just really help give us a better understanding. But what we're going to do first is we're over here on the passenger side, and we can get our harness plugged in to our taillight connector. Here's our taillight connector, and you're going to take your T connector here from your wiring harness, and you want the one that has the green and brown wire. And that's essentially just going to plug right into the factory connector there. All right, and then I'm going to start to drop some of these wires down through this little opening. So I'll take our driver's side T connector, we'll push this down, and I'm also going to take our 4-way flat connector, this one, and push it down as well. Looking at this, I also decided to just push our black wire and the white ground wire through as well. Pretty straightforward. And now we're going to secure our module box. So I cleaned off this surface and this surface back here with some alcohol. Let it dry. Then we're going to take the included sticky tape, push that on, and I'm going to just secure this down right along there. Now we can take our white wire with the pre-attached ring terminal and ground it. So if you don't have your fascia removed, you can always ground this up in this area, all right, somewhere in the taillight pocket, as long as it's clean metal. I've done that in the past. In our case though, since we have it removed, there's this flange down here, good clean solid metal. So I'm going to run that down, then take the included self-tapping screw, now we can route our 4-way flat wire and our yellow T-connector wire over towards the middle and driver's side. So in our case, I just followed this factory wiring along through here, and our 4-way flat just drops down. I got it connected to the hitch using the dust cover there, the dust cap. The yellow wire continues along. And I want to say, if you don't have the fascia off, instead of doing it like this, your 4-way flat, you'll just have to run down outside and kind of go underneath and run it over here. The yellow wire, though, what I've done is if you peel off this weather stripping, you can kind of put it in there and just work it all the way down like that to get it to the other side. But in our case, I just ran it along up through here, and just like the other side, you know, plugged one end of it into our factory taillight connector, and then eventually this will plug back into our taillight. All that's left now is the power wire, which is this one here. You can connect it here and run it up towards the front. I like to run it from the front to the back though. It just seems a little easier to route sometimes. So with that said, we'll go up, pop the hood, and get started on that. Under the hood, we're gonna be on the passenger side. And I took our big bundle of power wire, straightened it out, just took one end, and just from the back to the front, pushed it through. There's a little piece of foam there, you can just push that through. And we need to strip the end back to expose some of the bare wire underneath there. Give that a twist. Then you can take the included fuse holder. Make sure the fuse is not installed. We're going to put that in once we have everything hooked up. One end I crimped on the included ring terminal. The other end is going to get connected to our wire there. So you can take the butt connector, put that over the bare end of it, and crimp it on down. Same deal there. That'll connect those two together. Then we need to hook this up to our positive battery. So two little levers there on the cover. Squeeze them in. Set this out of the way. And I'm going to use this post, which is what I suggest doing. That's the one that they say you can jump start the car from, so you know it's going to be hot at all times. This is a 13mm socket. I'm going to break that loose, and what I'm trying to do is keep downward pressure on our wire while we take the nut off. That way it doesn't reset our battery or our clock, or you know, get any sparks going or anything like that. You know, just something I do. But I'm going to put the ring terminal over it there, and then we'll tighten the nut back down. So we have it like that. Let's take the cover, pop it back on. The wire now is going to get routed towards the back, and I'm going to go underneath the vehicle. So through that little pocket there, you can see one of our brake lines kind of going through an opening. I just pushed our wire down through that opening to the bottom side. Underneath the vehicle, this is where our wire drops down, and you want to do your best to avoid any hotter moving parts. Right here, there's just really no other way to do this that great, because it is somewhat close to the exhaust, but thankfully there's a heat shield here, and I was able to run that wire behind that heat shield just to keep it protected. But I just shot it over along through here, and using some zip ties along the way to keep it secure. Try to avoid getting right up on this pinch weld here, because that's a jacking point. If you go to, you know, get your car worked on, they lift it up, so you don't want to smash the wire. So kept it up like that, and then I brought it along our pinch weld about here, and just continued to follow it towards the back essentially. Every now and again, there's, some holes you can use to zip tie. Same thing with this area, the pinch well, that's a jack point, so keep the wire well away from it. And from here, I ran it up, and it kind of gets a little tricky to see, but kind of up along the bottom edge of our frame, we have a brake line that runs across, and I was able to zip tie it to that, essentially to about here in this area. And now we can lower the car down and see it from the outside. There's our wire from the outside. You can actually get a decent look at it. So it comes up, follows this brake line, and then I just pushed it through this hole in our frame. And I put a little piece of plastic loom over it just so it don't rub on that sharp edge. But you could use some tape or whatever you got to. So it comes through. That's where it comes out. And then I routed it up to our module here and use the provided butt connector to pair the two together, just like we did the fuse holder. You strip them back and crimp this on, and that'll complete the connection. Now moving back underneath the hood, since we have everything hooked up, we can take our fuse and place it into the holder. So what I'm going to do now is loosely get the fascia reinstalled. That way we can plug in our taillights, and since we have some factory connectors here that are attached to our fascia, I want to make sure that these are plugged in before I turn the key on and test our wiring out, because on some vehicles, if you do that with these unplugged, it can throw some things off. Not sure if that's the case with this one, but I'd rather play it safe. So we'll get the fascia on, get those connectors plugged in, get our taillights hooked up, and then we can test it out. The bumper cover on and those factory connectors plugged in down a little bit deeper. We can now get our taillights plugged in. So these are just going to work the same way. Our T-connector end is going to plug right into the taillight housing, and we'll get them reinstalled. To test our wiring, I'm using this small tester, which is what I suggest doing as opposed to just plugging into your trailer. I say because if your trailer has any issues, it might mislead you into thinking it's something we did on the car side. But we'll go ahead and try our left turn signal, our right turn signal, our brakes, and our running lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Curt 4-way flat trailer wiring on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee WL new body.